Hey fam. So I'm not feeling well again today, and I think I know what it is. It's time I go to the dentist. Um, in New York on March the about 2 weeks before the city shut down, I had um I had a very strange experience. Yeah. I was coming from a pre-shoot. It was late at night, it was cold, it was dark, and I heard a ringing in my ears in Midtown Manhattan. And I'm coming home, and the ringing is increasing. It's about almost 10 o'clock at night. And I feel something happening to a tooth, this tooth. Uh huh. And I know you're gonna think I'm absolutely nuts. I know you're gonna think I'm nuts, but I have to put this out there. I got home, it was very cold. I got home and I happened to sleep in the room where the internet modem is. Okay. And I had just had some tea. I had some granola because I didn't want to eat too much, and I went to bed. The minute I put my head down on the pillow, I've had the most excruciating pain that you can imagine in this jaw. And progressively from there, I began to have a seizure. That's what I said. I began to have a seizure in my mouth. And the lower jaw was moving on its own, like, Um, now, this tooth has mercury amalgam in it. And it's a strong tooth. I had a tooth on the upper mandible pulled last year, and they analyzed all the teeth on both sides to see which teeth would be needed to be pulled next. That was not one of the tooth. They said it was one of my strongest teeth, even though I've had that amalgam in it since I was a little girl. Let me backtrack. When I was a little girl, I lived in Harlem with my grand aunt. Oh, I got a hair sticking out. Yeah. Um, and I lived in the Wagner houses, which are the projects, but that's where my grand aunt lived, and she could take care of me. Um, she was just this old battle axe of a Jamaican woman who's been in America since like the 60s. Anyway, she sent me to public school, and these doctors came around, these dentists, they came to check kids' teeth. And if you grew up in the 80s, you remember what I'm talking about. So, they took us all, the dentist came and they were giving us this free health care, this free, dental work. And we got stickers and we got all different kinds of things to, oh, it's free, it's great, you know? And they put this mercury filling in my teeth without, my grand aunt didn't even know that I was having dental work. She just knew the dentist came to school and she thought it was probably a good idea. But, excuse me, I know that kids in Scarsdale, kids in New Rochelle, kids in, Ardsley or in Upper Westchester County, no free dentist was showing up to your damn school and putting mercury amalgam in your mouth without your parents' consent. People knew by then, okay? The American Dental Association knew by then that mercury amalgam fillings were dangerous. And I've had this in my mouth for all of these years. I was about 10 or 11 at the time when that was put into my mouth. Um, So fast forward into the future, I have this thing in my mouth. And this particular night, I was coming off of a pre-shoot. I had gone down to I forgot the name of the studios on 8th Avenue. I met with my dancer that I was working with. Everything was going well. I had no pre-problems. Um, Probably the week before, I was very sick. I assumed that I had the coronavirus. I was so weak I couldn't stand up, and they sent me home to go to the doctor. And instead of going to the doctor, I went home and I made like ginger and cucumber and greens, and I took that, and I was, and I rested for about 3 or 4 days. And then 1 week after that is when I was coming home from that shoot, that pre-roll. And you know when I got home, I said I take the tea and the granola, and then I had this seizure, and the lower jaw was just going on its own. That was some freaky ass shit. So by about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I don't know how I held on for that long, but I didn't want to wake up everyone else in the house. And this is in Westchester County, and my housemate worked in New Rochelle. And if you know what happened in New Rochelle, that New Rochelle was essentially shut down, and he was sick prior to that. So he was sick, then I was sick, and then this thing with my mouth. So I rushed to St. John's Riverside Hospital, and you can physically see that my jaw was having a seizure. You can tell that something was happening with my the tissue around my mouth. They couldn't figure it out. They were like, "Oh, that's fine. It's just the tooth." No, I've had teeth my whole life like you. I know when it's like a tooth is going bad, it begins in like stages, and then it starts to annoy you. But what I could feel like, it felt like an elastic, a rubber band underneath my gum was kind of contracting and raising the tooth up out of its gum. And I said to my friend, it feels like the gum is pushing the tooth out. And he says, "Oh, no, 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 that's not how it works. It causes, your teeth cause problem, then you have to go to the dentist to take it out. Your gum does not push your tooth out." I'm like, "I can feel it." And I kept, like, it was just the most phenomenal thing I couldn't figure out. So when the city shut down 1 week later, when Westchester County, where I lived, and when they shut down 1 week later, I knew that I had to run for my life. So I went to North Carolina, and then, coronavirus became this big thing. Um, and the tooth just progressively got worse. I knew I needed to go to the dentist, but I could not find a dentist that was open at the time. And I'm one of those people who probably fell into the category of, you want to take care of yourself while you're going through this coronavirus because the dentists are closed. And I tried. I took ginger, and I had my spinach and my juices. Just I took care of myself as if I was sick, because I was exposed. I go to school at Battery Park at the New York Film Academy, and at any given time, at any given moment, you can touch 10,000 people. You could reach out and touch at least 10 people, just like in front of you, on the subway, on the streets. It's where people take the ferry to go to the Statue of Liberty. It's a landmark. There are lots of museums in the area. Then we have the film school. And I take two modes of transportation every day to get there. So I was taking um, the I was taking the 5 train or the 1 train, so I can get a ride to either way. and then I would, I would go all the way down, and on the way back I would take the number one bus. So I was exposed to anything that they were talking about on the news. I had already been done exposed to it. So when I get to North Carolina, I start treating myself as if I have the coronavirus. I am steaming. I'm using orange peel, I'm using cloves, I'm using rosemary, and I'm steaming out my sinuses. I'm gargling with apple cider vinegar. I'm, putting eucalyptus in the tub, and I'm on all fours just inhaling the vapor out of the eucalyptus. Um, and I knew I had something, okay? Um, I went and I got tested, and they said it was inconclusive, but I was getting progressively worse. I went and I got JoJo tested and myself tested. And the way my body reacts to serious illness is not to lie down. My body reacts by getting, I can't, I have to fight. I feel like I have to fight. I feel like I have to go to war with it. So JoJo had this 15-foot trampoline that a friend sent her, and I went down into the yard on this day that I felt like I was going to die. I went into the yard. I felt like my heart was about to stop if I lied in the bed anymore. And I put this trampoline together by myself. Um, I just needed the blood to pump. I needed the sun on my skin. I needed to activate whatever it is that's in this melanin inside of me to push this thing out. And that was a turning point in getting well. And what I noticed is the more stress that I was going through, the more my energy began to decline. So, um, at one point, I had to be taken to the hospital via ambulance. I felt the same way. Like my chest was contracting. I have pernicious anemia. Maybe you can tell from the darkness around my eyes, but I've consistently had problems with keeping a good blood crit. So, but I try to fight that with like molasses and honey. Um, and I have the sickle cell trait. I don't have full blown sickle cell. I have the trait. So I do, I take a lot of herbs and roots to strengthen myself. But this particular night I felt like I was done, and I needed to get to emergency medical assistance. So um I went to yeah, the ambulance took me to the hospital. When the ambulance took me to the hospital, they gave me a baby aspirin, and they gave me something else to stop the contraction in my chest. I was not having a heart attack. They were not sure what was happening to me, but no one knows what was happening to me. They got me to the hospital. Some things looked great. They can tell I was in distress, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And they kept me for a couple of hours, and then I went back home. Um, I started this video to talk about going to the dentist, and I ended up somewhere else. But anyway, the thing that has been persistent is this tooth. So, but I couldn't find a dentist. So now that I'm here in Tanzania, I've gotten ill about a week ago, and I know I ate some bad fish. But last night I was in my classroom, my Zoom class, and I had nuts just to chew on something to stay awake, nuts and water. And the same kind of feeling that I was getting, like indigestion, um, started. And indigestion, and I'm like a hyper salivating. And when I woke up this morning, the pain was still there. I got Jojo ready for school, and then I realized, sometime during the night, during my sleep, I realized that it was the tooth. It's probably this concentration of the amalgam filling and blood or whatever is back there that needs to be released. So I'm gonna go find a dentist. The funny thing is, Mama, the first thing I did when I asked her, I told her I need a good dentist, and she said, "Oh, that's my best friend." So Mama is like a resource. She knows everything. She got Jojo into school. She knows, she's just this angel of a being. And the other day she wasn't feeling well, and I ran down there and I took her coconut water, and I didn't know that the problem that she was having was actually her blood pressure. And so, it lowered her blood pressure, but I didn't know at the time. I was just doing what Jamaican people do, is like, oh, something do you? Coconut water will fix it. So anyway, she is recovering on the mend at home, and I'm waiting for that number for the dentist. So I'm gonna show you something. Don't get grossed out, okay? Um, so remember I was telling you that I kept telling my friend that I could feel the tooth being lifted out of the gum. When I got down to North Carolina, I had an inflammation at the bottom, at the base of the gum. And after that inflammation, the tooth got progressively worse. Look at this. I don't know if you can see that, but the tooth is actually loose. The tooth loose on its own. I am in no pain. The only pain I am in is when I actually sit there and try to rip it out, but I'm in no pain in my mouth. I'm dealing with indigestion and hypersalivation, and and my face is completely swollen. So it's you can probably tell, but my face is just completely consistently swollen. So I'm gonna go see if I can get this out. But I started to tell you something about this how it got in my mouth to begin with. You know, America isn't good for black people. Of all the damn places that they chose to go to give free health care was in the black neighborhoods, because they know that these kinds of lead and mercury affects black children. They know that it affects our learning ability and our cognitive skills. There are studies that prove that fluoride in the toothpaste affects children a certain type of way, and they're not going to publish that, but it's published if you want to research it. Fluoride almost affects black children the same way as it does as does lead. And black children and Latino children, brown children, carry um, certain genes inside their stomach that the fluoride reacts to, and these things help to create learning disability and behavioral problems. So why would the dentists, knowing that this stuff ain't good for black kids, come to the black neighborhood and put it in our mouth, right? Is it just a coincidence that after that you have, because that was a crack epidemic I'm telling you about. I grew up in crack era, that I was skipping over crack vials and hypodermic needles to place hopscotch on the playground and go to school. That was the crack era I'm talking about. But I'm just talking about the generation that had the things that happened after that, the behavioral things and the prison pipeline and the school to prison pipeline. You know, if you went and checked some of these guys in prison, you know, check their mouth and look in there, see if they got any of these mercury amalgam fillings from the inner cities of New York and Chicago. Um, I'm sure you will find that there's some truth to what I'm talking about. Because I had behavioral issues as well. I'm no saint. I was a little rascal. I almost couldn't settle down. I almost couldn't, catch my own attention. And I had to develop my own philosophies and my own way of thinking that I'm not going to procrastinate. If I start something, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to hold true to my word. If I say I'm going to do it, I do it. If I say I'm going, I'm going. If I say I'm not going, I'm not going. If I find passion in something, I want to express it. So that was something I had to, I had to instill in myself from a very young age when I realized that I wasn't focused. I wasn't healed, meaning HEELED. I wasn't I wasn't focused. I was just, I wanted this and this and this and this and this, and I was doing this, and I wasn't catching my own attention. So if I hadn't been able to, you know, have that philosophy within myself to say, no, this is not how we do things. I mean, I remember when I was like 12, and by this time I went back to Jamaica. I was going to an all-girls school, and I looked up on my wall, and I had like an unfinished painting, unfinished artwork, unfinished project. And I said, no, Renee, that's not how we do it. We don't do this. We finish things. And I took down all of my paintings and I finished them. And from that point on, I said, if a teacher gave me an assignment or anyone gives me an assignment, if I'm not going to finish it, I'm not going to start it. And I would carefully make time to finish things because I didn't like how I felt, just being a person who didn't finish things. So I want you to think about those things. And if you find that what I'm saying about, even targeting children in school is fucked up, then it's time for y'all to leave and get up on out of there. Because in my day it was the mercury amalgam filling in your mouth. What the hell are they doing to these kids these days? Is it in the milk? Is it in the water? What is it? Is it in the soda? Is it in the mac and cheese? What are they doing to these kids? You know? So that's what I want to talk about. I'm gonna see if I could find a dentist and fix my mouth. All right, y'all. Love you. Thank you.